Welcome back, everybody. This is Brian, Miss Berlin, and Mr. Betcher for Breaking Down Security.
Hello.
Awesome. It's like y'all were in stereo or something.
Yeah.
Hey, so we're getting down towards the end of the year here. Did anybody have their company parties yet?
Nope. We actually
No.
I don't know if we're having one.
Oh, okay. So that dulcet tone,
nice.
We're going to go ahead and introduce our guests this week as well, so we can make some small talk with them. You know him, you love him. You may have seen him at a DEF CON or two. We have Brian Harden, who's Noid on Twitter. That would be you, Brian. You could say hello. Hey, Noid.
Hello.
There we go. So
I know it's not a video podcast, so I don't know why I waved.
No, that's okay. So the way the podcasts work is I say things and then you bring them back to me. And I know you don't get on my podcast. It's all right.
This is the second podcast I did.
Oh, okay.
Podcast earlier this year being the first.
That's true. All right. And somebody who is on the DC 206 mailing list up here in Seattle with us and said, "Hey, I'd love to be a fly on the wall for that." And I said, "Okay." Dave Dittrich, welcome to the show.
Hey there.
So, Dave, for those of the rest of the world who don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself, your origin story, how you came to be here today.
Oh, well, so I guess I might be the person who invented the term distributed denial of service attack.
Wow.
First one to write analyses of DDoS tools in 1999 and early 2000, which led me to trying to understand the ethics and legal framework for responding to aggressive distributed attacks. Got some interesting articles I've been writing on Medium going back to the things that were happening 20 years ago.
Very cool.
So,
okay.
yeah, it's the ethics part that kind of brought me here.
Right on. And
That's awesome.
So you were working in academia, and now you're working for a startup with a friend of yours.
Yeah, trying to make it in the private sector this time.
Okay. Are you trying to create distributed denial of service stuff, or working from an ethics point of view?
No, I guess I'd kind of leave it a little bit vague at this point, but
okay.
Trying to leverage the stuff that I've been doing over the past 20 years.
Cool. All right, Dave, I think your microphone's banging against your hoodie a little bit. So,
Sorry.
No, it's all right. I just wanted to make sure that I have an audio podcast, so if I put out shit, then, Anyway, so I'll edit this part out. I just wanted to, go back in and get everything. So, no worries.
Hopefully that's better.
Yeah.
There we go.
I think so, yeah. I was just hitting against hoodie and I figured it out. So that was cool. All right. And back in now. Okay. So, this week, it's kind of a banner week for really awful news. We're going to talk about a couple of those things. I'm fully expecting this to be a 2-part episode. So you're going to hear some stuff this week, some stuff next week. Some of the stuff you're going to hear next week has some to do with our previous podcast that we had with B. Hughes when she came on the show. And we were talking about, realistic threats in your environment. We got some feedback from a listener, somebody I know and respect. And I thought we would talk to that a little bit since everybody here has had some work with developers and working in a DevOps environment or not. But, we've got some senior leadership here, so we definitely want to talk about how to deal with that. So this week, we're having Noid on because he did a blog post. And for full disclosure, we use Keybase at our office. And we like using Keybase up until about recently. Noid, maybe you could tell us a little bit about why up until recently everybody liked using Keybase.
Well, overall, Keybase is nice because one of the problems we've had with end-to-end encryption has always been sort of like key management, and sort of at the end of the day, it's kind of a pain in the butt. Mm-hmm. There's that infamous screenshot that's been going around of somebody who sent Phil Zimmerman, the guy who wrote PGP, an encrypted mail, and he mailed them back and said, "I don't have PGP. Could you send this to me in clear text?" And that kind of goes to show the problem here. And admittedly, I'm a big fan of Keybase. I liked, one, just for the attestation aspect of
Right.
it, of being able to say, yep, this account is the same account that owns this Twitter account. Here's my key fingerprint. In fact, it's actually on my business cards.
Mm-hmm.
But then when they branched out and started offering the encrypted file service, that's really cool because it's seamless. If I start a conversation with, say, Dave,
mm-hmm.
and I swap some files with him, they're just automatically encrypted to the two of us.
Right.
And that makes things super simple. I've got things I store in my own personal folder. I've got things I share with a couple of teams I'm in. Things were really cool kind of up until recently when they got in bed with Stellar, supporting the cryptocurrency. And then all of a sudden we started realizing there was a massive control gap that nobody had seen before because it wasn't really being exploited. Although there are reports of this issue going back like 3 years, I think.
Mm. Yep.
And yeah, and at the heart of it, anybody can message you and anybody can add you to a team. You have no control over this. And in fact, if you leave the team, somebody can just add you back to the team. I know somebody who's been trying to get out of a team for 2 months.
No. Why is it
Every time he leaves, they add him back and say, "You're welcome."
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a failing in terms of being able to control access from a user perspective. It's like you may not want to be added to that. Instead of over provisioning somebody, you're willingly wanting to be under provisioned, but when other people have access to change and make your life a living hell, this becomes unusable. I actually have been using Keybase at my company for over a year, and it only started having spam issues when the whole Stellar cryptocurrency stuff came out. And for those of you who are listening, Noid has a blog post in our show notes where you can go and listen and listen along and read as we go. So you disclosed this. Did you use their GitHub for trouble tickets, or did you just reach out to them directly?
So initially, my concern had been they had said basically for security issues, mail Chris and Max. They gave their keys, but they didn't actually give you their email addresses. And my concern, and I told this in my initial report to them, I don't see this as a serious security issue, but I'm kind of hesitant to go throw this up on the public GitHub account and effectively disclose it. You see, I know I'm on a couple of lists where this happens all the time. Somebody drops something in a mailing list and then all of a sudden realizes like, yeah, you just zero-dayed something.
Right.
So I'd reached out to them kind of privately about it. And then, initially I didn't hear back. And then I started taking some wild swings at, figuring out what their email addresses were. Mm-hmm. And I got a response back from Chris Coyne. And he basically said, this isn't a problem. This is intended functionality. We think allowing the users to be able to control how people interact with them would be bad for the platform.
Okay.
And I mailed him back and said, I disagree. Here's the different vectors that could possibly happen. Then I started to put together a proof of concept where I basically created a fake Keybase user. And I pulled they were willing participants. I just told them something was going to happen. They needed to pay attention to Keybase for the day. Wasn't going to tell them what was going to happen. But when it did happen, not to click on any links.
Right.
And so my fake user created a team, threw a couple of DEF CON goons into the team, and then started sending them messages about cryptocurrency. And I even dropped a link to an active, at that moment, malware C2 portal.
Nice.
Just to see if there was any sort of URL filtering going on.
Nice.
And nothing. It was hot.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, I went on Twitter and said, well, I guess I'm going to disclose. And then Max got back to me and said, we'd prefer you didn't, but we obviously can't stop you. We have server-side, we have tons of server-side controls in place to reduce this to basically prevent this from being a problem. And I told him, I said, well, I don't think they're working because how do I know about this?
Right.
Yeah. And they're trying to stop automated spam. right? They're trying to stop bots. They have
Yeah,
absolutely no idea what it's like to be stalked online.
Yeah, they don't see the harassment vector here.
Right.
Yeah.
I also think it's kind of funny they don't see the malware aspect of this too, because I can just drop links to people.
Yep.
But even then, from the spam side of things too, most of the spam I'm getting, these are bots.
Right. Yes, the couple spams that I've gotten have been fairly shapely lady types who want me to send them money in return for naughty pics, and I was like,
right.
Pretty much money being their lumens because they actually have a value, and that's another whole thing with me about cryptocurrencies.
Yep. I've gotten a couple of those. Mostly, I get a lot of, "Hey, how are you?" Right. And you go look at these profiles, and the one thing they all have in common is the only accounts they attest to are like a Bitcoin address and their Stellar address.
Right.
And then from me mucking around, after I made my blog post, I started mucking around Twitter looking for other people who were having this problem and kind of dropping my link to the blog post in there and saying, "Hey, here's a chance to do something about it. Let's pile on." And that's when I came across a few other people, such as Aria Stewart, who was receiving just outright harassment, like, "Oh, you're a lady, so forget asking you for lumens. I'm gonna start hitting you up, saying all sorts of nasty things."
Yep.
Because that's the experience women have on the internet, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people that try and talk to different software companies about thinking about that when they build their software, because a lot of places don't. They're like, "Oh, this is a great product. We can, whatever the product actually does," and they never actually think like nefariously how that can be used to track someone without their knowledge, or find out damning information on somebody, or attack them in ways that they've not previously been attacked. So
yeah,
a lot. Yeah, well, they have no idea.
Yeah, and one of the things that had concerned me is Keybase themselves advertises themselves as a safe place for schools and churches and communities to gather. And it's like, okay, but yet there's no control in place that will prevent, say, a child molester from messaging a 16-year-old on the platform.
Right.
It's not safe.
Right. Yeah, and they don't do just encrypted chat like you had mentioned. I was actually thinking about moving the BrakeSec Slack over to this because you had 250 gigs of space that you could use. With the invention of Teams, which was relatively new when we switched over to it at the office, there was the ability to create a community, a social network kind of thing. They also they have something to do with Git. I don't know if it's they encrypt the encrypt your code repos or what have you. So
you can do encrypted Git, which is also pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
If you don't want to go through the hassle of setting up your own in-house, say, GitLab, you can use a public encrypted Git and then just add people to it, and you can just keep doing your thing, kind of in plain sight.
Right.
I mean, that's the thing. And I even told the guys in my initial report to them, like, I like the platform. Like, keep up the good work. I need you guys to add this basic level of user control that here in 2019 is no longer a nice to have. It's a requirement.
Yeah. Even ICQ and AOL Instant Messenger have the ability to block people. They're not necessarily secure, and one's owned by the Russian government, but they all have the ability to have it's not role-based access controls. It's just access controls or de-access controls in this case, where you can control the conversation yourself. And so you had asked them about the anti-spam controls. Their blog post mentioned that we're going to have admins that are going to, monitor and moderate, which, now we're back to Keybase and Twitter at that point. Somebody, I think, said if it wasn't you, Mr. Noid, it was one of the other blog posts I read about this. Now we're having to deal with mods who decide what the ethics of Keybase is. I'll ask Dave about the ethics and stuff later on. But
that's Dave's bailiwick.
Yeah. So the response to you from Max was, we don't comment publicly on anti-spam controls for obvious reasons. If the effect of your post will be to make our lives more difficult in terms of anti-spam and anti-abuse, and say instead of spending more time building features to improve the product, we would appreciate you didn't. We're a small startup being $10 million being given by a VC company that deals with cryptocurrency in a field.
And two guys who also started OkCupid.
Right. Yeah. Creeper. Anyway.
We're not a couple of hungry college students sitting in a garage someplace.
Right. Yeah, we're trying to build a service we think is valuable and useful. If you want to put a tax on this free service by publicizing spam techniques, that isn't in your interest as a user of our service and our interest as a small startup trying to build a useful product on 5 platforms, but we can't stop you. So what I heard was it's not a bug, it's a feature. Well, there's some additional stuff, but what I got was it's not a bug, it's a feature. Please don't write a blog post that will point out the issue. So there's some Streisand effect stuff there that just happened for them. You pointing out the issues makes things more difficult for us, which, it depends on what the roadmap was like. And so it's a free service. Why are you hurting us? Did I miss anything in that exchange?
Yes. One thing, in fact, it actually kind of ties back to my visit on your podcast from earlier this year, where we were talking about bridging the gap between security and development.
Right.
The key takeaway from that post I got, and that message I got from him, my key takeaway was he still has that developer mindset of, oh, don't make me stop working on features to have to do security.
Yeah.
And like, okay, guys, say it with me. Security is a feature.
Right.
And that was my key takeaway from that whole interaction was this guy sees security, 1, only as bugs in code, and 2, something that you stop working on awesome features to go deal with.
Yeah.
Not realizing that security is one of the awesome features you need to have in your product that makes people want to keep using it.
Yep. So you posted this blog post on the 22nd of November. And the blog post that Keybase posted on December 4th probably came out because, and you'd actually told me this on Twitter, that the next day, the register.co.uk was going to post a Keybase article. So I'm assuming somebody from Register reached out to them and said, hey, we're going to do this post. Would you like to comment? I don't know if they actually did comment or not, but like that post came out before the one for the Register. I don't know if it was a damage control thing or what, but in their post on Keybase, they said, well, this was always in the deal to make this happen.
Yeah, my Maury Povich style, my screenshots say that is a lie.
Okay. So there was some additional bits there. Communication seems to be something that a lot of startups have issues with. Dave, I'm not going to say that you have a problem with communication, but from an ethics point of view and from a startup point of view, how could they have better handled this situation?
Well, first question I had was, don't they have a security address? Like that's sort of an industry standard that if there are security problems, and I noticed that they do participate in HackerOne, so they do take security seriously, but that's sort of an industry standard that you should have a security address so that it makes it easy for somebody to report something instead of having to infer or guess or brute force email addresses.
Yeah. They do have a bug reporting at the bottom of their website, keybase.io/docs/bug_reporting. They do talk about serious security bugs, keybase.io/max/Chris. You can also, they have a security at. They do.
Okay.
Do they?
Yes. It's under bug reporting.
That's the kind of thing that they should make, really prominent.
I will tell you that I've been working a lot with small companies doing certain types of security assessments. And a lot of times they don't want those on their page. So they kind of bury them along with the terms and conditions or the privacy thing down about 15 paragraphs down where nobody's going to read it anyway. But they have it on their page. So the company that's requiring all these little companies to do that, consider that to be like, check. There you go. Bug reporting. All right. I'll put that in the link.
So what I started trying to do was going through some of the articles that were cited in Noid's blog post. And there was an interview with the founder that was done with Max. And just trying to take a look at, how do they look at things? And they were pointing out that privacy and your ability to control your data, the right of privacy, the right to choose who you associate with and communicate with, those are things that kind of fall under this concept of autonomy, that you as a person have a right to choose who you associate with and how your data is used.
Mm-hmm.
So when they start talking about privacy as being one of the main things, that's a sort of duty that, you know, should apply equally to everybody. Another duty is, as part of autonomy, the ability to say, no, I don't want to have communication from certain people. So it seemed a little conflicting for them to say, we are taking this duty to heart. We're giving you the ability to have autonomy here, but not in this other place having to do with the contacts. So that was actually specifically called out in Noid's blog post, the consent as the issue.
Right.
So that's the main thing that I was sort of calling into question about their behavior.
Yeah. So this is not the first time they've worked with startups or worked with people. The one thing, and I got in, actually, you had a quote in the register. Let me see, where is it? Noid, what was your, yeah, there it is. Cryptocurrency people tend to be just really scammy, get rich quick types. They're not much different than the multi-level marketing people of the real world. I completely agreed with that. I don't do cryptocurrency. I thought it was kind of a cool idea that they were giving these all out. I'm still not sure how they value these lumens, if they do it based on, you know, throwing a dart at a dartboard or what have you. But they had to know that, I mean, the minute they started popping these lumens out, their GitHub, their Reddit channel, all of these things are now clogged with, please to be giving me my lumens. I cannot get them. I live in country X and I can't do it. Did they not expect this to happen? Or do you think they were influenced by the people who gave them $10 million to say, you're going to go ahead and push this through?
So I think they expected it, because something I brought up, not in my blog, but in a private conversation with somebody, was that the very problem we're trying to get them to addressing it is actually kind of, in a way, not good for them. Because if you have a platform and you're hoping somebody's going to come buy your platform, having a ton of activity on that platform, new users being able to say, we add X number of users a month, look at how much traffic is going on. Mm-hmm. So on many levels, they benefited from this control gap because I looked at it as no different than those Instagram influencers who 3/4 of their followers are bots they paid for. You know, they say, oh, I'm an influencer, or 200,000 people follow me. And it's like, well, no, 50,000 live human beings follow you. 150,000 robots you paid for follow you.
Right.
To make you look more influency than you were. And kind of the same thing here. It's like, yeah, look at all these users we have. Now, they're not quality users. And in fact, a lot of them probably aren't even human.
Yeah.
But look at all these users coming to the platform. Look at all the message volume we've got. Look at all this stuff we have. You know, man, wouldn't you like to get into the ground floor and buy this turnkey operation?
Yeah.
And fixing this issue is actually kind of detrimental if you're looking at it from the perspective of, I'm trying to do a short-term sale of my company.
Oh, okay.
Because a lot of times when you're trying to get bought, you push the big problems away and you have the attitude of, that's the new owner's problem.
Ah, I see. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. As full disclosure, I actually have 2 Keybase accounts. One I've had since it was invite only, because I was like, oh, hey, that looks cool. I want to be able to use PGP in a way that doesn't suck.
Yep.
And so I'd gotten invited, and I had like 10 invites, and I still haven't used all of them. And then when I started working for the company I'm at now, Leviathan, they use it, and I was like, really? Is this ready for prime time yet? And they're like, oh yeah, we love it. And I was like, oh, okay. And to be fair, it has changed a lot in the last year and a half. I mean, just
it has.
You know, it used to be buggy as shit and would crash and all that stuff. But it's, universal. It works on Linux. It works on Mac. Works on Windows. It has a command line, which unfortunately I had to use because, things like deleting teams or removing people from teams had to be done with command line when I first started using it. And it was not available in the UI, which I found really annoying. I think I posted a bug into their GitHub and they're like, no, it works as intended. Just do this. And I'm like, well, okay, poor documentation, typical of a small company that's doing software development. At least in my opinion. And then they finally fixed all of that, and I was like, oh, okay, this doesn't suck. And then dark mode came in, and then your bug came in. So all of these things came in, dark mode especially, and then we're adding additional security. So we've got some security on the back end. We added dark mode, and now we're trying to block. Please giving me the lumens and all that. So.
Yeah, and to that end, I'm almost positive that the reporter reaching out for comment triggered this sudden change. I think it also explains why, if you look at that blog post, it's pretty quickly put together.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah.
Conjecture on my part, but
I read the thing, and all of their blog posts feel fairly not official,
disingenuous.
Oh, okay. I wasn't going to go there, but okay, it sounds disingenuous. In what way, Ms. Berlin?
We were talking about this a little bit before we started, but at least with this most recent one, it just sounds like they're doing it because they got called out and they don't actually really want to fix things. And maybe they won't. Maybe it'll just be kind of a little patch that doesn't actually work, or I don't know. It just doesn't seem like their heart's definitely not in the right place.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because I'd reached out. The reporter from the Register forwarded me their blog post and said, "What do you think about this?" And I said, "Well, it looks like they're listening." And I flat out told them, I said, "But you need to run the story anyways, because now it'll keep them honest."
Right. Yeah, they said in many ways this, so the nuclear option, they said that for a long time we've debated a certain feature which some users have been arguing for. You don't argue for a feature, you ask for it, or you suggest it, or you debate it. In many ways, this breaks Keybase's social features, but may be ideal option for celebrities, people who are magnets for negative attention, not their fault. Work environments that require no outside contact, or really, really attractive people such as this person. Okay, I don't know who Moose Coin is, but so they said in the next 4 weeks, they'll start seeing this option in their chat settings. Only let someone message me or add me to a team if. And then they'll have if-then statements, basically. Yeah,
almost word for word what I told them.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah,
Did the Register publish?
Yes, Register published on Thursday.
Links in the show notes.
Registered published on Thursday, and then the next day Slashdot picked it up, and then Ars Technica did an article as well.
Yep. Hacker News also did something. You ended up on there hitting 100 plus folks. It says this will create a custom walled garden experience. Won't be necessary for most people, especially after the blocking features launch, but it will 100% shut down all unwanted contact. I'm all in on that. I want my social media to be as unsocial as I want it to be. Which
it's weird they consider that the nuclear option.
Right.
I would consider that default behavior.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, especially anything that you're not even as good as Twitter is right now with regards to what you can do to block people, and how much Twitter's been in the news for that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, the Q&A stuff, or the FAQ stuff, they were talking about, why didn't you do this sooner? There were other things about Keybase holding it back far more than spam. We were working on those things. I see a person on Keybase who's a member of some club that they don't agree with. Can you boot them? Nope, you can block them manually. Did I see somewhere where they said if they blocked an account, they were going to put like a picture of poo over the top of it?
Yes, they were going to put like a poop emoji on them or something.
Okay. Oh, yes, as a bonus, their profile pic will get covered in poo. Why don't they just delete them so they don't show up anymore ever?
No idea.
My guess is if they're covered in poo, they still get lumens. So, people are making multiple accounts, and they get lumens that way. So they're farming lumens by creating fake accounts.
This is run by two 20-something white dudes in their basement, isn't it?
Tech bros. Yep.
Jesus.
Okay. Well, thankfully, our company has decided to move away from this. We're actually going to move to Teams eventually, very soon, because of integrations with O365. Now, I'm sure we're going to have a hell of a lot of problems with this, and wish we'd kept Keybase. But yeah, what would be a killer to this? If let's say Slack decided, oh, we're just going to do end-to-end encryption. Would it kill what Keybase is trying to do? Because Slack doesn't have Slack coin. Or, I mean, does Slack have a good enough feature set to block users or not allow people to be added to Teams? I haven't even bothered to check, see if I know I can add people to Teams, but.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't know, because the only place I ever use Slack is in either pre-established groups where I'm already friends with people, or at work.
Right.
Where I've yet to ever have to like throw a coworker out of a chat room.
Yeah, we've never had to throw anybody out on the BrakeSec Slack. We've banned somebody.
I've wanted to.
Sorry.
But yeah, in terms of adoption,
no, just you, Brian. That's okay.
Oh.
But yeah, no. In terms of adoption, I mean, Slack already kind of rules the land. Slack's got all the integration and plugins with it. It's already it's near ubiquitous in a lot of companies at this point.
Right.
So I think basically, if that were to happen, Keybase would pretty much lose everybody but the cryptocurrency people. And the cryptocurrency people, they're like gold rush people. Like as soon as a new claim gets found someplace else, they'll pack up their pans and their picks and they'll go someplace else.
Yeah.
So wasn't the original killer app part just the key management?
Yep.
Like just making it super easy for people to deal with crypto keys and validation of accounts.
Yeah, that's the reason I had it, because I was like, oh, I can use PGP now and potentially send messages or encrypt files or something using PGP. Because I can't use it in Outlook. There's the email PGP plugin is not very good.
Yeah, there is also kind of an elephant in the room there too. That what enables a lot of this stuff to work rather seamlessly is that they've also got your private key.
Well, yeah.
Oh, wait,
so
what?
If I were to ever say pop Keybase itself, that could be bad.
Yeah.
Interesting. Have they had any, I mean, they do, you said they have a bug bounty program. Has anybody ever done any kind of, Veracrypt or whatever, where they did a source code review to see if they're actually doing what's necessary to secure that?
I don't know, but I seem to remember they had like a public audit or something.
Well, they're part of HackerOne, so that is sort of a general invitation to try to do things that I don't think involve actual code audit.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. NCC group earlier this year do an audit.
Okay, I know some of them folks.
Yeah, I was about to say, I know a bunch of those cats, and they're pretty good.
Yeah.
Now, a question, though, too, is also what's the scope?
Right.
Because I can make something terrible look really good on paper if I scope it correctly.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, just doing research.
I'll have to read it later.
Just doing some research for this deal. I went into our Keybase because I knew they had one, and it's just nothing but the first 5 or 10 is like, oh, I live in Poland, I can't get my lumens now because you've locked us off or whatever. And I mean, it's definitely changed their community or the types of people that they're trying to get, from people who care about security to people who just want their Lambos and hodl. And so the problem is there's no better option right now if you want to use any PGP related stuff. Is that still a problem, or how often do people use PGP?
Honestly, I'd use it more if it was easier and more seamless. And that's kind of
I've heard that. I've heard that though for the past 10 years.
Right.
However long, yeah.
I've been pushing this idea to try to use a platform, information sharing platform that enables PGP encrypted email lists for things like securing elections. And non-technical people, it's a super high learning curve to try to figure out how to deal with encryption keys and validation, signing.
Right.
So anything that makes that easier will help, but like you say, there aren't that many alternatives.
Yeah. So what does it take to be verified? Is it like you, Noid, you just said all they had was a Bitcoin wallet. Should they increase the number of, sources needed to make it happen? I mean, I think I have a GitHub and I have a Twitter on there. I tried to add the Facebook or whatever, but should they have something more than just a Bitcoin wallet to verify who they are?
Yeah, this is where you could do something like reputation scoring.
Okay.
It's a matter of like, okay, I've got my Mastodon, my Twitter, my Zcash, my whatever, like all these things. Okay, odds are I'm a person.
Right.
If I just signed up, haven't validated any accounts, and the only valid account I have is the Stellar Lumens account that was also created, on this same platform, that reputation should be pretty low, because you could probably, I have reason to believe that it's all being done programmatically at this point. I'd planned on working on an angle to do that, and I'm thinking somebody beat me to it based off of some things I've seen in the last few days.
Oh, you think it's API call to create an account and do all that, and you just wait for the lumens to start popping in?
You can't create an account with the API. Okay. I've poured over their API stuff a little bit.
Okay.
But what I have seen lately is an increase in bots hitting me that just say random strings that are clearly getting pulled from something somewhere.
Right. And
so what I'm thinking is, I don't want to give out one of my angles, because if it's correct, it's just going to cause more problems. There can be a discussion for another time, maybe.
Well, besides Seattle's coming up, maybe you could write a talk.
Yeah. But there are ways, I believe, you can automate the account creation process. And you can also use the API to discover users, and they limit your polls to, I think, 10 records per poll. Okay. But at the same time, if I distributed this at scale and had a bunch of fake accounts all working together, I could pull all the Keybase users and then have my master list of people to irritate.
Right. Okay. I was looking to see if they were actually hiring security people for their company. According to this, they're looking for front-end engineers, Windows front-end engineers, senior visual designers, and a software engineer. So nothing that screams security anywhere on their page. They use Electron, React Native, and Go. Native APIs via Go wrappers. I do like their file system driver. I thought that's pretty cool.
The Docan?
Yeah. I mean, the installer looks like malware, but I mean, it still works. Yeah, it looks like the old Nullsoft thing back in the day, like when you were installing Winamp or whatever. But yeah, so none of the jobs they're hiring for are specifically or having anything to do with security. Well, somebody did mention distributed file systems. Okay, they do have security and cryptography as a software engineer. So it'd be interesting to see what their environment is like, where they're working at in SFO. They have a Seattle office too, huh?
Oh, do they now?
Yeah, it says NYC, Seattle, Chicago, and SF. So, interesting. Maybe I'll poke at them. Anyway, so I was thinking that this would cause all kinds of issues, like additional dummy accounts for, Twitter, Git, or Reddit, but it sounds like that they're just using lowest common denominator. What would be nice is if they had a way of, like, if you don't have a Twitter account, I don't want to know you. Or if you don't have a Mastodon, I don't want to know you. If they could add additional controls in for that, just as, if Joe Bob sends me his, Keybase and all he has is a Bitcoin wallet, then I'll know just to block the hell out of him immediately. Unless he's wanting to give me money, and then I'm all good on that. Which is rarely the chance. They don't send it my direction. They want me to send it to them, which is.
I mean, that's my two rules in life. If you have to have either a Twitter or want to send me money, or I'm not going to talk to you.
Okay.
Well, I've noticed they've also done something else with their last update. In fact, I actually had to change my blog post because of Twitter. If you have Keybase desktop, when you go look at a Twitter user's profile, you now suddenly see this Keybase chat button.
Yep.
And ironically, that works out well in terms of cutting down on randos hitting you up, not because of their security model, but because of Twitter's.
Right. Okay.
Right?
But then I noticed just yesterday, I now see it on Facebook profiles, and I looked at the Facebook profile of a friend who does not use Keybase. It's sitting right there, and if you click on it, it says, this user doesn't currently use Keybase. Send them a message, and we'll send them a link so they can sign up.
Right. Great. So I opened up my Keybase because I wanted to look at the Twitter thing, and here's Skyboy26 saying, hi. Screw you, Skyboy26.
Pretty sure I uninstalled Keybase.
What's that?
I'm pretty sure I uninstalled Keybase.
Yeah. See, the only thing you can do right now is mute all notifications, which is kind of annoying because if you mute all notifications, the only way to get that back for a specific person is to go into the command line and unhide it.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, that was something that I found quite interesting, where their UI was not parity to their command line for a while. It's gotten
I don't
better.
have it anymore.
So one of the things that I was thinking of the other day with this is once they took the VC money and they aligned themselves with Stellar, the attack surface changed altogether. You know, if I wanted to be a bad guy before all this VC stuff and all the crypto coin stuff, the only reason for me to attack people for Keybase was to gain access to their PGP keys potentially, or do an account takeover and impersonate them, which depending on the amount of people, and I read according to Reddit, they've had several 100,000 people join I'm using quotey fingers, join them in the last month or so. And in this case, before the cryptocurrency stuff, it was pretty much just account takeovers, which are integrity attacks. And now we've moved back and moved over to deception. Is there a lot of companies that have this kind of change in the attack surface? So majorly in this case, it's like, oh, all of a sudden we're worried about insider threat. Oh, now we're worried about China all of a sudden. Does it happen like that on a regular basis? Dave, Noid?
Can't think of anything.
Am I wrong in that assessment? Is it wrong?
Well, I mean, you make a major change to your platform, especially if you don't threat model it ahead of time.
Right.
Yeah.
You could change the threat surface drastically.
Right.
And I think that's what happened here is, you start pushing the cryptocurrency thing. That brings in a new set of threats. And, that's, you got this whole new set of threats that pop up. And I mean, if you threat modeled it, you might have thought of that.
Right.
But then again, this is why I'm a huge fan of getting as many people as possible involved in threat modeling, because a lot of times you're not going to see the things that you already don't see.
Yep.
So it's always nice to have that fresh set of eyes that walks in and says, oh man, well, I would do X, Y, and Z if this was available to me.
Yeah.
And they kind of started out as sort of, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's like the old thing of basically like, letting the engineers check each other's code, particularly letting an engineer who doesn't like you check your code, because they're going to find all the things you screwed up.
That should be a service.
Yeah.
What, developer hate as a service? I can do that.
Yes.
I can do
Yeah.
that.
Anyways, go on, Dave.
Yeah, well, it did seem like they sort of started this out as a garage project, and they even mentioned that they were doing WeWork at the beginning, so they didn't have office space and go slow. And so when the money started coming in, I can actually see that being a significant change in the attack surface because of the new feature set, the new customer base. It wasn't anticipated, and if you grew things on a shoestring, you have to cut a lot of things out,
Right.
And they may not have been prepared. So that is a really good point.
Well, so people who are in the cryptocurrency world don't seem to care about the bot issue, at least what it seems like in my opinion, or they're just trying to get rich quick, like Noid had mentioned.
They are part of the bot problem.
Oh, because they know they can game it, they min-max it?
Yeah, that's the thing. If you're giving out free cryptocurrency to everybody who walks up, I'm going to walk up to you once, then I'm going to walk up to you with a monocle and a top hat, and then a monocle and a top hat and a fake mustache, and then a cape. And, I'm just going to keep going, like getting free samples at the Costco,
Right.
Just, oh, hello, I have never seen this product before, and you have not seen me before. Can I have some of your lumens? So, Yep, fake mustache over my real mustache.
Yep.
Yeah, if growth at all costs is the goal, then you do open yourself up to that.
Yeah. Okay.
But every cryptocurrency, or not necessarily cryptocurrency, every electronic currency that I can think of going back in time has ended up being attacked, because it's like the old, where do you go rob banks, or why do you go rob banks? Because that's where the money is.
Right.
Yep.
So you should expect that anything that has to do with electronic currency is going to be attacked.
And if you give it out for free, it's like the old college.
Right.
How am I going to get people to come see my band play? Oh, free beer.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Now, of course, is this going to bring people who want to see my kick-ass rock and roll band play? No, it's going to bring a bunch of people who want free beer to show up.
Right.
And in turn is almost undoubtedly going to bring a bunch of ne'er-do-wells who are going to wreck the show up, because they're not there for the show. They're there for the beer.
Right. So the other thing I was thinking of, we're doing a whole podcast on this, and there's been a lot of attention gained to the Keybase folks. So now you've got people who don't have a problem with cryptocurrencies going in, and do you think we have now generated our own Streisand effect, by reporting this and having the reg reported, and, people will be hearing the podcast? Do you think that this is played into their narrative as being, put upon and hurt, but, they really love the attention? Is that typical of a startup in this case? I
always come back to the Urban Outfitters, their whole attitude of any attention's good attention.
Right.
Even though publish their winter catalog that sexualizes toddlers.
Oh.
Something to that effect.
I was not aware of that. Okay.
I think it's Urban Outfitter. It's the name of the site's just sitting at the back of my brain right now.
Okay.
But just every time they put out a new calendar or a new catalog, it seems like they catch a bunch of hell, because they've got a bunch of increasingly younger people and sort of more sexualized type images, and they catch a bunch of hell for it. But at the end of the day, it's like, yeah. And thanks for publishing this story about it, because now people are going to come buy this stuff.
Right. I'm remembered American Eagle Outfitters was another one, I think.
That's who I was thinking of.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, their CEO was
Urban Outfitters.
Creeper. Yeah, that guy was a real creeper.
Yeah.
So here's where we can maybe...
You guys can go back to selling your end tables in the shapes of states and things like that.
Right.
Ping pong table in the shape of Fiji, that kind of thing.
Well, here's where we can maybe flip the narrative a little bit. So in a lot of what I've been doing over the last few years in terms of evaluating ethics and computer security research and operations, I've during the Menlo Project report, one of the things that we hit on was this definition by a lawyer named Stephen Carter. He has a book called Integrity. And I kind of use this as the foundation for any talk that I give on ethics. So as Carter says it, quote, integrity, as I will use the term, requires 3 steps. The first one, discerning what is right and what is wrong. 2, acting on what you have discerned, even at personal cost. And 3, saying openly that you are acting on your understanding of right from wrong. And so if you take this concept of integrity as the foundation for making any kinds of decisions about the things that you do, especially if you're acting as, quote, ethical hacker, and you're trying to have some greater moral good for society, or as Keybase was saying, trying to enable people to have privacy of their data and enable interactions with other people using encryption, you can kind of focus on that part 2, acting on what you have discerned even at personal cost. So if you are the kind of person who chooses an ethical principle in the moment based on your ability to get the outcome that you want so that you win rather than having some greater moral good, that's exhibiting the opposite of integrity. And I would say that the way that Noid's blog post was put together encompasses all of those aspects, because he's really clearly saying, these are the things that will reproduce this bug, but I don't want to make them public at first because I think that will cause harm. My goal is to benefit the user base, and that it's your responsibility, company who provides the architecture, to address these issues. And so we've been postulating that maybe they're making these decisions based on they need to have an increase in the user base in order to have a higher sell capability when they're bought out. Striving to get people to have that kind of integrity and enforcing it as a customer is something that we should be trying to do. And in vulnerability disclosure, I think it also applies quite a bit. That, you know, we should be able to say that we're balancing these various principles and making decisions not just because it benefits us because of publicity or whatever. And if the vendor is trying to say we're making our choices based on XYZ, if they say that they're adhering to a duty, then be consistent about that.
Right.
You know, is this an opportunity for us to take advantage of this, you think?
I would think so. It depends on the culture, and if they want to take this to heart, you know, if they come back with an additional, any additional blog posts about that, it would help them if they had some kind of, code of conduct, for instance, going forward, where it's like, okay, we're going to call it what it is. You know, we're going to speak out and go, yes, we screwed up. We should have done this. And you see that on some companies. It's like, yes, we screwed up. Here's how we're planning on fixing it and making sure it's no longer a thing. But, you know, it really depends. I mean, it's not really well known in the cryptocurrency world for having those kinds of things. Usually you hear about somebody, you know, dropping the whole clearinghouse of Bitcoin and they escape to some non-extradition country, or they disappear and they never are found again with, you know, a couple $1 billion worth of cryptocurrency, and everybody's all shocked and surprised that there was somebody, you know, robbing the bank and heading off to another country. So, I don't know if this is the case, but one of the other things I saw in the blog post was you actually can't convert lumens to dollars yet. Or you have to use like a third party or like somebody who'll convert your lumens to coin, like Coinbase or something, where they'll, you know, convert it into a usable cryptocurrency, which can then be moved into dollars.
There's a couple of exchanges out there. I'm not much of a cryptocurrency person, but I happened to sit in on a conversation just 2 days ago where someone was asking about this exact thing, and one of the people in the chat room was very versed in cryptocurrency, and they were talking about, like, basically they take their lumens, they convert them to something else, and then send it off to this exchange, and then from there they can get it into Bitcoin and then use local Bitcoin to go get it into cash. Okay.
Wow, that sounds like a pain in the ass.
It is. It is. It's one of the reasons why I avoid cryptocurrency. I'm Doge rich. I was a Doge miner.
Nice.
It's hard work, but it's honest. And that's the extent of my cryptocurrency experience. In fact, I've probably thrown away God knows how many Bitcoins over the years because they weren't worth anything to me.
Oh, I used to be a millionaire.
The one time I took a payment in Bitcoin was a very large sum, and we lost quite a bit just in the few minutes that it took to transfer.
Yep.
Nope.
Yeah, when I opened my bank account for the nonprofit, the Education Foundation, they asked me specifically, will you be taking any cryptocurrency? And I was like, well, no. I mean, I'd like to leave it as an option. And like, yeah, don't, because, you know, money laundering. And I was like, okay. Yeah. So yeah, apparently it red flags the federal government if you're a nonprofit that will willingly take, cryptocurrency. And I was like, interesting. Okay, let's not do that then.
Cryptocurrency suffers from the same problem that like regular encryption does. And that the thing that makes it really awesome for you to use is also the thing that enables child pornographers to hide their data from law enforcement.
Right.
You know, cryptocurrency is great when you want to make anonymous purchases, but it's also great if you're like a Ukrainian gangster who wants to launder money.
Agreed.
And
yeah.
the things we have to balance out.
Well, and it's non-reputable. I was looking at a bot back in like 2007, 2008, a key logging bot. And at one point it was looking through the key logs specifically for PEC Unix, 1DMC, and eGold. All three electronic currency, non-reputable. So if you can steal somebody's key and empty out their wallet, or not wallet, but empty out their account, there's no way they can refuse the transaction. You've got the money. If you then are set up to launder the money, you're gone.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, there was something, Node.js. We had Adam Baldwin on a little while ago, and there was a package that had been taken over by a new developer, and it immediately started trying to, when it was installed, it would automatically start looking for customers or accounts that had a specific type of cryptocurrency in it, like a Monero or something like that. It wasn't a miner, I think it was just looking for Monero. So, they're definitely targeted towards
wallets.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep. I remember that blog post. I remember that podcast because for some odd reason, people got mine and his confused. And I've had people reach out to me and say, "Hey man, I heard your podcast. That was really cool. You were talking about the Node.js stuff." And I'm like, "What?"
You don't even look anything like him. He's, about yay tall and you're somewhat less.
Yes.
It's okay. I love you, man. I'm sorry. So, Ms. Berlin, Mr. Betcher, do you have any other questions? Because I'd like to move on maybe to part 2 here in the next few minutes. Did you have any other questions, comments about Keybase? Mr. Betcher, you don't use Keybase, do you?
I signed up.
You did? Okay.
Right. And that's pretty much the extent of it, just to do some research on a talk.
Okay.
But yeah, that was it. I didn't find it too amazing. I remember when we were at the place, we had something called PGP Desktop, and that made PGP really easy. But that's pretty much the extent of my PGP as well, because it's just, it's a tough thing to use, and it's hard to get other people to use it along with it, along with yourself.
Right.
I think there's something to what Noid mentioned, is that they're giving away this cryptocurrency and getting a ton of people to sign up, legitimately or not. It does sound like they're prepping for some sort of a sale or a cash out or whatnot.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe we can keep tabs on it, and as soon as that happens, we'll just announce it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely do that. I appreciate the Stephen Carter's definition of integrity being added to the show notes. That was pretty cool. I also added the NCC group public report link that we posted in our chat window here. So there's a lot of good stuff with regards to this. Ms. Berlin, did you have anything else before we move along? Okay.
Nope.
So that was the end of part 1 of our 2-part discussion with Noid and Dave Dittrich. You'll be able to find a lot of our links in the show notes. So you can find links to, say, Noid's blog post talking about all of the items that he came up with. One of the things we didn't maybe touch on quite as well as we should have was the disclosure on that. He did talk to a number of folks and try to disclose it responsibly. So he waited the 90 days that usually comes from Google in regards to fixing vulnerabilities. So he waited 90 days before disclosing the bug in the blog post, which is the post that he sent to Keybase telling them that he was going to do so. There's also some additional links in there from the Register, the original article, talking about all the timeline, and also some Reddit posts on the Keybase Reddit talking about active social engineering attacks that are occurring. So there's a lot of good stuff in there on that. All right, so before we go, some housekeeping. Thank you to our Patreon donors, Scott S. and Ian S. for their donations. Patreon is what we use to currently supplement what it takes to put on a podcast, and hosting fees, domain hosting fees, Zooms that we use in our Slack as well. Speaking of the Slack, if you're interested in reaching out and expanding your community a little bit, we do have a Slack. You can email us at bds.podcast@gmail.com or send us a DM on Twitter at BrakeSec, BRAKESEC, and we'll get you in as long as you're not a Russian bot. Miss Berlin, you can find her and all of her awesome organization, Mental Health Hackers, on Twitter at Hackers Health, or her personal Twitter is at InfoSystir, INFOSYSTIR. Mr. Betcher is available on Twitter at BetcherPwned, BOETTCHERPWNED. LogMD is his baby. He does a lot of the coding and sole development for that. It's a Windows log forensic tool. So if you're interested in that, you can go to log-md.com. You can find Noid on Twitter at _ Noid, Noid _, and you can find Dave Dittrich on Twitter also at Dave Dittrich, Dittrich. So, let me see. Layer 8 conference. If you're looking to try to go to a conference dealing with social engineering or OSINT topics, you can follow at Workshop Con. And if you tell them why you're interested in those topics of social engineering or OSINT with a hashtag send me to layer 8, as in the number 8, they will select a few folks from these tweets to potentially get access or to attend the conference. And they would like to mention that they are looking for folks with emphasis from underrepresented or minority groups. But I believe it's still open for anybody to attempt to get a sponsorship if you cannot make it. If you're also interested in sponsoring Layer 8, you can go to sponsors at layer8, the number 8, conference.com. And it will be held June 6th, 2020, which is a Saturday at the Rhode Island Convention Center. All right, well, that's it for the Breaking Down Security this week. Take care of yourselves. Be nice to one another. And in the holiday time frame, it's oftentimes people can feel down, a little depressed or whatever. Know that your friends out there will help you get through your issues. And as we like to say, take care of yourself because you're the only you have. And so hope you tune in for next week's part 2 with Noid and Dave and Miss Berlin, Mr. Betcher, and myself. And if we don't talk to you before then, have a great week. We'll talk to you again soon.